I'll say that there's nothing liberating than being yourself and really getting to know yourself. And we deprioritize that sometimes because we're so busy getting information from other people or whatnot. So I'll say you are doing great. First thing first, you need to know that and believe in it. And then, but there's always a bit of the gap, leave it open. So you're creating space for the new and exciting. And then another level of journey that you don't even know what that looks like. So sometimes we are busy. We feel like we're all operating in a full plate, but you'll be surprised when you give yourself, be kind and give yourself that space to fully put in new and exciting. Some magic will happen, whether that it's a new friends, new relationship, new problems, new passion, or just doing something that like, I don't really do this, do it.
Welcome to 99 Humans. My name is Jeff Lakusta, curious coach and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, striving to understand how little things generate big impact.
And I'm Nadia, Carta, tech executive and lifestyle coach with a mission to transform lives and corporations by kindling hearts to generate a zeal for life.
Each week, we investigate stories about the human side of leadership to re-energize your spirit and help you become a stronger leader.
Because the reality is that leadership is messy, goofy, challenging, but always human.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Let's dive in.
It's good to see you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's my pleasure. You're such a trailblazer. I'm very excited for this conversation today. Jeff is sad that is missing this, but it sends a lot of wishes. I love that everybody are seeing all my lights through the glasses. My eyes are a little tired.
No worries.
What you've been up to, EJ? What's going on in your life?
Oof, big question. I think that the way I summarize sort of my current state is I am pursuing a portfolio career. That's not something I ever really planted, but it's just funny that I do have a so-called day job working for one of the largest comms agency called Fleshman Hiller, and I am a partner in an intelligence organization called True Global Intelligence. But then also I have a passion project that I am pursuing, parallel pathing, and that is Nabi. Nabi is a wellness startup that is laser focusing on helping women in perimenopause and perimenopause specifically. So we're decoupling any of this confusing narrative that mushes peri and menopause, because from a woman's perspective, you're either in peri or in menopause. You cannot be both at the same time. So we should not be talking about the solution that way. We shouldn't talk about the struggle that way. And I was actually at an event last night, and one of the doctors like, menopause, that's kind of easier compared to perimenopause. Perimenopause is the roller coaster, hard to navigate because it's so unknown and sometimes invisible, and all these different symptoms are kind of happening, together that women have a hard time understanding. Is it because of peri or is it something else happening? So there's that truly the transitional time that women are like learning more about their body. So it can be quite confusing, and we wanted to bring clarity. We wanted to bring solutions that are laser focusing on the problem, which is perimenopausal symptoms, and provide a supportive community, so women can share and talk about what they're going through without feeling like, I am in my, let's say early, late 30s or early 40s. I don't quite find a connection between somebody who's in like mid to late 50s, for example. So we wanted to really carve out a community that was distinct. So it's been fun. It's been fun and rewarding, frankly, seeing women light up when they think about their bodies and what the, daily struggles, and they realize that it's not just them, it's everyone else, actually.
Honestly, realizing that you're not alone is being so healing. I will be forever thankful to you, EJ, because you gave me words and you gave me explanation, and you really taught me things about myself that I was not aware. So you are trailblazing in this space. I know we're waiting for Marina, your other business partner and partner in crime in all this.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by your choice of words. Portfolio career, it's very interesting. And this is a podcast about leadership and it's about humanity. What do you mean when you say portfolio career?
Yeah, I recently landed that. I've been hearing about it. It's a kind of an emerging trend, I think, when we talk about pursuing career and what does it look like, and especially women in 40s. There's a bit of that, like, what do I really want to be? I have 20 plus years of experience, and I've actually gone through that like 101, a lot of talking to women in a similar situations. And, you know, I think that there's a big question of like, how do I take all the things that I've done and the skills that I've developed and where do I put that in? And I think this is also a time of our lives where thinking about the bigger purpose and you actually in the position of being able to choose more than, 10, 15 years ago, because of you had to kind of almost like pay your dues and learn your skills. So I think I'm at just the right time to pursue whatever the opportunity that gives me, a chance to learn, expand. To me, that is like what I want to do. And it happens to be sort of two different areas, personal passion, led to Nabi, but also there is sort of, I love consulting solutions for our clients, and being in a creative space is quite energizing. So I think I'm at a moment like I'm still learning, I'm still expanding. So rather than picking a career as like a one path, but there's like, if there are opportunities that could continue to expand you, and if there's a way that and means you can like be able to do both, then, that to me is a portfolio career. So it's not so much about choosing like one employer. It's more like choosing the path of keep building your skills and keep being part of a groups that will only going to make you a better leader, better teammate, because you're constantly, challenged in a good way and you're constantly thinking and learning. So that to me is my personal definition of career,
Yeah,
a
I
portfolio career.
really, yeah, I really like it because too often we have so much pressure about, oh, I need to take a decision. It's either or, and I need to make up my mind. Whereas I really believe that success is more in the gray area, if I can call it that way, like swinging between things. How is that influencing your day job and your job at Nabi, right? Like
Yeah.
how this decision is really impacting also your leadership in both spaces.
Absolutely. And I think I've gone through that period, of course, like everybody would. Do I pick one lane? What's that lane, right? And pros and cons, all that. But I think that I come to a realization that I'm a person with many interests, and I think we all should celebrate that. And in fact, committing to something like this that I'm doing right now, my version of portfolio career, it actually forces me to be a better leader, better worker. And I do think that I said it to someone, any employees working for a big company should run their own business at one point, because that only helps them think about problem solving slightly differently because your environment is different. So it's more that versatility of how you approach and also resourcing, right? When you're a startup, like you have to be very agile, bootstrap, but then if you work for established corporation, then there are certain things that are kind of there for you. And I think you agree with that. So it's more like, how do you balance both, and also how do you give your full in both places so that not one or the other is sacrificed? And I think if I get to a point where, okay, I am not giving my full on either because I'm trying to do both, then I think I have to be really honest with myself and make that choice. And I think that that's the thing, commit to the choice that you make, and you may have to sacrifice, or you may have to, hustle extra way. But I think that's what comes with the choice. And I know that that's only just making me a more fuller person. So, because the experience that I'm getting through Nabi is something that I'm not going to get from being in an established corporation, just because, again, the operating environment is not the same.
Right. And I don't want to be a little provocative. Certainly I'm with you. for me, having a creative outlet meant so much. I mean, these big corporations, of course, they give you a lot and they
Hmm.
pay us well and everything. Well, let's face it, you need to be in your own lane, and it's not that you can poke around, and it's not that you can innovate. And so, having a little baby that you can care for, it really creates that space for you to create and change. I'm wondering if at any moment in time you had the feeling that what you were doing was too much or too big or not worth it.
Mm, absolutely. I think I definitely gone through that a bit of agony, if you will, because I have an analytical mind, so I tend to overanalyze. Um, Especially when I was in a career where I felt like my contribution or my value was not really either be awarded or acknowledged, or I didn't have much room for me to really influence. I think that's when I really had to think hard about, does this make me happy? Is it something that I want to do? But again, like all that come down to, what is my purpose? Why are you doing what you're doing? And I had to go through a bit of that soul searching, people say, and ask myself some really hard questions. And also, what is at a point, one of the good advice that I've gotten is like, what is at the version that you're kind of cheating yourself versus like deceiving yourself versus what's the version then you're like, yep, that's me. I'm giving my all, and I am, being myself. And I think that authentic version, I mean, it takes a while to, I think, land, I think, there. But I'll say that there are times that, yeah, of course, I do question, if the path that I'm on is the right one. But I
I
keep
mean,
reminding myself the purpose.
yeah, what do you mean when you said deceiving yourself or cheating? You dropped this two very straight. I'm curious, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I think it's more like, am I doing it because of how I'm perceived from outside? It's what parties that I get invited to, what events that I get tickets for, or some of these like things. I live in New York City, and I've gone through different highs and lows in my career in this city, and sometimes you go through that. I mean, to be raw, right? Sometimes that you are in between jobs, and you don't get any calls, and there's that experiences that I've had. And I think that when I say deceiving, when I'm cheating, it's more just like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it something that I fully support? And knowing that all comes with some aspect of darkness and some aspect of brightness, with anything in life. But what's the version that I feel like I'm not cheating, meaning pretending to be happy or pretending to be I'm satisfied or acting like I am learning and expanding when I wasn't. So I think those are the checkpoints that I have with myself to see, where am I? And if you ever get into a point where like there's a disconnect, I think this for me is a red flag. And then I tried to go deeper. And I ask people to do that thinking all the time. Ask yourself, are you deceiving yourself or not?
Yeah, that's such a good point. And it's so easy to just go along with our lives and forget about it and do what we're doing just because. And I really salute you for taking the time to think about that. What I said to one of my peers the other day, which she even texted me to say, "Oh my God, when you told me that, it was so impactful." What I said is, when you know your purpose and when you know what you like, for me, it's a no return road. It's a no way return, because from that moment on, you can see the evidence so clearly between when you are on purpose and when you're not on purpose. Like, if you don't know it and you never explored it, it's almost like you can live in ignorance.
Yeah.
But once you know it, that's when the art stuff starts, because it's not always that we can live on purpose. Like, sometimes we just need to do our jobs because of the money and the security.
But that's a purpose too, and that's okay. And I think that's the kind of things I've also learned over the years is that what matters to you. Sometimes I'm sure you in your career you've asked like, what are the things that matter to you when you're picking a job? And there's money, there is the working environment, there is the boss, there is the kind of work, right? Like industry, a lot of these things. And I bet you that everybody, if you were to do this every like 3 to 5 years, over the past 20, 25 years of career, it changed. Meaning that priority changed. And it should, because we are evolving. So it's okay to call it that, you know what, money is the number one, driver of picking a job. No shame. Very supportive, but at least knowing it, and then know that there are certain things that will come with that you have to, take and absorb and embrace it. And, but again, I think for me, absolutely at one point in my career was definitely the monetary reason. But also for me, I came here on a work visa. I was here as an immigrant, and I was on a work visa for a very long time, like above average years. So I think for me that kind of keeping my residency was actually also part of it. But now that I'm on the other side, I mean, definitely certain things drove me. But here I am. I'm in a position of, selecting where I really want to spend my time and who's going to value my thinking, my team play. So trying to really pick a place that where you're going to thrive. And that's over the years where looking at bad and good leadership styles and working environment and where I thrive when I don't, I was able to put all that together. And I'm glad that that happened in my 40s, because I think this is a great time that all of that comes together and paint a very clear picture of where I belong and where I want to belong.
I love it. There's something going on in women and being about 40s.
Yeah.
I know that it's about 50s, but there's definitely something going on. And I don't know if I don't remember, or I don't know if I was, in another planet, but it feels different from when we were in our early 30s. Like, meaning, I don't know that when we were 30s, the women that at the time were 40s were living with such an empowerment that we are living. Like, it's almost like there's being a very big societal shift.
I have to agree with you. And I think this is also like, look at us. We're talking about perimenopause and menopause. And that, I started Nabi about 4 years ago as, again, personal passion project. At the time, if I bring up the word perimenopause, it was like, what, menopause? Like, what is it? It was like, I mean, now we still need education. But 4 years ago, my goodness, it was like a non-existent vocabulary. So here we are. I think I read it somewhere, Nadia, that we are the first generation of women. We can really make a difference, and we are actually doing something about it. So I think all of our mothers and aunts and grandmas, they kind of pay their dues and brought us to this point. And now we are very much equipped from a intelligence and the power that we have, influence. I think we're just using it now finally into the right places to make some changes and fires and sparks,
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, EJ, this is a podcast where we also tell stories of messiness, roughness, and challenges. And I'm wondering, I mean, not that I'm wondering, I'm pretty certain you have an answer. I'm wondering which of the many messy and rough and chaotic stories you might want to share in this podcast today, because I know a few things about your life that for me made me love you more. And which is the one that you would want to share with our audience? Like a story where you are like, oh God, this is rough and I don't know if I will make it the other way.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, when you have a bit of a trauma, I think your body kind of turns into a protection mode. And then what I'm experiencing is more of a selective memory, to be honest. I think I try to erase a part of that life in my career that was so tough. But I want to talk about it because this is the platform to do so. I once had a job, and working for a guy was, that kind of classic definition, like narcissistic and, very much like knew what he wanted. And I admire him for that. But at the same time, was not a good leader. And I think he was a good boss. Everyone comes with a gift, right? And I think that's kind of where you learn the good, but also when you learn the bad, like you kind of trying to like, okay, I will not want to do that again. I was more of a middle manager. And I think that's also very difficult when you're working for someone super influential, but also powerful, but not the best leader. But then you're put in a position to execute. That's actually a really tough place to be, because you're still, from a titling perspective, I was very much of a senior person, but I was not given the opportunity from an environment perspective, to really exercise that leadership, quote unquote leadership. So I did have a very large team, and I had a very smart group of analysts. that I needed to manage and lead. But when you're the sort of the middleman, you're pretty much going to be the punching bag because you're messaging, right? The messenger always gets hurt. There are times when there are certain things that are not fair, did not make sense, and we had to work many, many late nights without really understanding why. And I think that's why, or even visible to do certain things, but it was already, the idea was sold. So we had to execute, and we had to really create magic from nothing. And from that on, just being able to lead a group of people when you don't quite believe the path that you're on, that's tough. And you have to show up because you don't want to also be too, raw and, complaining because you have a certain expectation as a, certain level in your career, right? As a team lead. But also there are certain behaviors of this boss that was not right. I mean, he was actually reported to HR a few times and things like that. And I do remember, this is actually a really sour memory that I tried to erase, but one of my junior analysts actually yelled at me over the phone at one point, EJ, this is your job. This is your job to protect and say something about it. It's not that I didn't say anything about it, but there's a lot of political things. If you ever work for a big company, there's a process that you have to go through. It can't just be like, oh, so and so did something. So I had to be very much of the delicacy of, being compliant with the HR and the rest of the company, but also need to keep the lights on with work. So I think on that job, I questioned my moral values many times. And then also being treated as a more of the factory. I mean, that was very difficult. And then lead a group of very smart people, very large group of smart analysts. That was challenging for me. And I struggled showing up. I, was not happy or being the best version of myself. But at the same time, I learned kind of how resilient I can be. And also coming out of that experience, I have a very clear list of what I will tolerate, what I will not tolerate. I think that really shaped me. So I don't look back and say that was all bad because it shaped me to be so super clear on my wants and needs. And now I'm at a point to be able to yep, that's my list. That's my filter. If you don't meet that, I'm good, So I think that was lots of painful nights and, crying and wanting to quit many times. And, it was very painful. But I don't know why I kept staying, but I think there's a bit of sense of, purpose, sense of purpose of I'm here to do certain role. And there's a good amount of people looking at me, especially my analysts, they needed my help. And, I think that was just that's when I knew that, okay, I'm a very purpose-led person,
I really empathize with you. Those situations are rough because you are in systems that are so bigger than you. And as you said, there's processes, there's things that need to happen. And let's face it, sometimes the people that are more individual contributors or they haven't been through these processes, they have limited visibility. And so like that person said to you, what are you doing about it? Are you going to do something? And you're like, hey, I am, but it takes time. I really love that you said about you took the opportunity to really reflect on what are the yeses and what are the no. I recently learned this sentence from the business school that I'm doing with Jessica Zweig that says you need to determine your holy yes and your holy no's. And really holding the sacred lines around that very firm for your own sake. So I'm wondering if you feel comfortable, what are some of your holy yeses and holy no after that experience?
I think the first thing first, I'll follow my gut. That was the moment in time that I actually needed a job because I had about 1 month to my green card. So I needed that job in the same industry, in a comfortable, so that was actually a personal driver. And it was a great opportunity. So, those are the things met. But I do remember meeting my future boss, and thinking there's something quite not aligned. And I think that sometimes you feel something, but then you're like, well, that was a really brief, there was brief meeting. You don't really understand the full person, that kinds of stuff. But I think that looking back, when you feel something, people say intuition is your best friend. And then I think that, people talk about this all the time, use your voice. Again, in a corporate setting, especially you're a new player, there are a lot of things that you want to do it right. But I do think that I'm not saying to anyone to flip tables, like, be aggressive but being able to really kind of draw that boundary, which I learned how to do that over time. Now I'm very comfortable saying something is like that was reasonable or that was not reasonable. So being able to have that conversation and being able to also, again, talking about check with myself, am I happy? Does this continue to excite me? And excite doesn't always have to be like jumpy all the time, but it's more like there is a bigger purpose, right? I'm expanding as a result of being in a certain situations or being part of a certain organization. And I think that's kind of my checkpoints. And if there's ever a negativity that it's more like I better do something else or my value, my skill set will be valued better elsewhere, then those are the flags that I listen to and not ignore. So I think those are the things actually really soft stuff, but I think it's a very important things.
Isn't it amazing how when you reach a certain age, you feel so confident about not taking any BS anymore? And it seems to me that the age is decreasing, meaning I see a lot of girls, in their 30s that are manifesting the same behaviors. Like, yeah, we don't take any shit.
Yeah.
And my biggest wish is that women and also men, to be honest, will do that by default. I feel that there's so much happiness and joy and freedom in to say, hey, you know what? This is not okay with me. I'm sorry. I am out of here. And I get it. I mean, listen, you had 1 month on your green card. And if there's one thing that you want when you want to live in a place, you're desperate, you take it. So you did what you needed to do. And I'm glad that you did it because then we were able to meet. But then I also believe that, like, what can we do as humans not to be in those desperate situations? You know what I'm saying? How can we plan ahead of time so that we can respect our integrity, go with our gut, and always put ourselves in the best position possible?
I'm a girl of options. I love options. No matter what I'm doing, I love options. And I think there are certain time in my life where felt cornered, right? I was on a work visa for a very long time. The life of H-1B is 6 years. I was on a work visa for I think 10 years or something. And I do remember every year I'd have to go to US Embassy. And then every year they were like, come in, like, what's wrong? And I say, it's all legit, I promise. And because there are companies who are sponsoring green card under that condition, I was getting renewed every year until I was obtaining the green card. I think for me, I always prioritized when I was younger, experience before status. That was the choice I made deliberately. So no regrets. But by the time that I got to a point where I was so close getting to the final line, and I realized that, okay, EJ, if I don't do this, if I don't take a job, within how the government sees it makes sense, on paper, then it will jeopardize my longer, sort of life. I guess that's where I wanted to make the choice. But again, that particular opportunity, though, that was a little push, the status, but also it did really give me a little bit of a bigger venue to experiment myself and learn. The learning curve was very steep and had to manage like two sort of different corporate philosophy because I joined like a newly acquired team within an established organization. So kind of like run as like a startup-y, but then it was part of the already established organization. So being in that position of managing those both things. But again, that looking back, that only gave me all the power to me like right now. But that was a very struggle when you have to very much of the sink and swim culture. You have to make it work. And I think that's when, you have to check with yourself to make sure that you have the surrounded with right people to support you, and know that nothing is like be all end all. And I think when we tend to be younger, like we have a bit more of that drastic view of life, when we just need to think about this all progress. We're all in making mode,
And I mean, listen, I do believe that everything happens for a reason, one way or the other. And of course, if we can avoid being in the unpleasant situations, even better. And sometimes it's about forging ourselves just through the fire. I always remember a movie scene. I actually texted someone about it a few days ago. One of my friends texted me very early in the morning, going through a very tough time personally, and they wrote why all this has to happen. Like, they were emotionally very unregulated. And I recalled an episode from Game of Thrones, from all of the Game of Thrones fans listening to this, where Daenerys Targaryen was put in when she was getting married to Khal Drogo, and she didn't know about her powers yet. She was put in this. I don't know if it was like not a house. It was like a closed environment to be burned alive. And because the people thought that they would have killed her like this, and that they didn't know about her powers, and she didn't know about her powers either, right? And so I don't know if you ever seen the scene of the movie. Have you seen the movie? Oh my God, you should watch it. It's an amazing,
putting on my list.
yeah, amazing series. But to bring the story home, they set the place on fire, and they basically think, oh, she's gonna die, we're done with it, and etc. And after the entire place is burned, and she's the mother of the dragon, right? So she's immune to fire, but no one knows, and also she doesn't know. Everything gets burned to the ground, and then she raises from the ashes with 3 eggs of their dragons that then are going to be her allies, and she's gonna win the whole thing with it. And for me, that scene of that movie is such a great reminder when I'm going through a tough moment, because, she didn't know about her powers. So she didn't know that she could survive through the fire and come out of it stronger and winning. And I see all of these life events as the fire.
I 1,000% I agree. And I think, you asked me about sort of those incidences when things were messy and things like that. And of course, we all have stories, right? We all have stories. But I do think that along this way, though, kind of piggyback on your point, I do think it's all about me. Meaning, there are characters that come in your life for a reason. But then at the end of the day, it's all because to shape you who you are, shaping you, making it a little bit more clear about who you want to become. And so at the end of the day, they are all people come in and out and have some pleasant and some unpleasant experiences. But all that, I think, comes down to what am I making of it? And then how do I, to your point, rise from all of these things and then become even stronger stone, right? With all these fires. And so I do, at the end of the day, it's all about coming to the individual, not about that person or this person. It's like, they all came in it, but you are the main character of the movie. And then that's the story, So I take that because even some of these unpleasant, I thank them. I thank them for being in my life, taught me some hard lessons, but therefore I'm here stronger than ever before. So, hopefully I can continue to develop, because we all need to evolve, but also be the person who can encourage somebody else who might be in a doubtful mode right now.
And I mean, listen, we welcome successes now. Enough with the fire. We are okay. We paid our dues. So I know we're approaching a time. And again, for everyone, please go check Nabi. EJ is going to share all of our contacts. But before we get there, we always close with one question, which is, what is your word of advice for people listening to this episode today?
Wow. I'll say that there's nothing liberating than being yourself and really getting to know yourself. And we deprioritize that sometimes because we're so busy getting information from other people or, whatnot. So I'll say you are doing great. First thing first, you need to know that and believe in it. And then, but there's always a bit of the gap, leave it open. So you're creating space for the new and exciting. And then another level of journey that you don't even know what that looks like. So sometimes, we are busy. We feel like we're all operating in a full plate, but you'll be surprised when you be kind and give yourself that space to fully put in new and exciting. Some magic will happen, whether that it's a new friends, new relationship, new problems, new passion, or just even doing something that like, I don't really do this, do it. So I'll just say that it's all about you at the end of the day, but it's about you becoming a better person. And that is just lifelong, I think, task. So be kind and liberate yourselves.
I love that,
It's
EJ.
a little deep, but
I mean, we take deep in this podcast.
so deep.
I already know that our amazing editor is going to put this at the top because it was really, really great. Listen, where can people find you? Where can people find Nabi? How can people understand more about what perimenopause is? And we are recording this in September. It's perimenopause month. So
Yes.
tell us all about it.
So Nabi, please go check us out at www.nabilife.com. And Nabi has 2 N's. If you're on Instagram, at nabi.life. So please follow us. Your followership means a lot. We do push out a lot of educational content. So first thing first, we want women to understand what perimenopause is and why it's happening. And so you can make your choice of what are some of the different things you can do to help yourself. We all go through it. It's not, an illness or disease. We all go through it, we women. So yeah, we'll catch you there.
I would say that this changed my life. I'm a very fond Nabi consumer, and I talk to everybody and all the women and men around me about it, even at corporate events. So sometimes people look at me in a weird face. I know that Ad Week is coming, and there will be panels about it. I'll be on a panel talking about it. So more to come. And EJ, thank you for making the time to join us on 99 Humans.
Yay.
Everybody, if you liked this episode, please share it with your friends. Give us 5 stars. It really helps us recording more. And see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.